point in the movie where Mike and Marcus are trying to enter into the club, and they encounter two young ladies that actually work at the club, okay? And Mike tries to spit this old played out game at him from back in the 90s, talking about something that's Giorgio in there. And the two young ladies inform him, we don't know who that is. The line starts back there, sir. Yeah, you gotta love millennials. And I can say that because I am one. But anyway, if you look to the young lady on the left, she has on the shimmering silver. Again, the shimmering silver, that represents the moon goddess, okay? And the main focus I want to shed light on is the young lady to the right, okay? The young lady to the right is actually Martin Lawrence's real-life biological daughter, okay? Her name is Jasmine Page Lawrence, all right? Now, one may ask, oh, Lord, don't tell me she has something to do with Kobe Bryant and his death and all of that. Well, actually, she does play into the narrative to an extent. And allow me to explain why. Let's take a look at something. All right, brothers. So this is a Google search on Martin Lawrence's daughter named Jasmine Page Lawrence. Okay. And what I want to take a look at is the date that she was born on. And it says she was born on January the 15th, 1996. Okay. That means right now she's actually 25 years old. Okay. So what that means is that when the movie came out, okay, last year in 2020, when the movie came out, she was actually 24 years old. Okay. Now, as we all know, Kobe Bryant, the second half of his career, he wore number 24. Okay. That's the reason Martin Lawrence's daughter had to be in this movie with him. Okay. Or this particular movie. Okay. She was 24 years old when the movie came out. Okay. It's just more predictive programming. Okay. It plays into the narrative of Kobe Bryant. She was 24 when the movie came out. He wore the jersey number 24. Okay. And what you're going to find out is now going towards the end of this movie, the number 24 is going to be a theme throughout the ending portion of this movie. Okay. Okay. So now we've entered into the scene where Mike, Marcus, and the Ammo Squad are actually inside the nightclub. Okay. And right here, this is right after Marcus has this incredibly awkward conversation with Mike about his sexual frustrations. So here we have this gentleman. He approaches Rita, trying to spit game or whatever. Okay. And look at Rita's face. Okay. She sees an opportunity to be the agent of chaos that she and most women are. She sees an opportunity to make Mike jealous. Just look at her face. So she enters into this agent of chaos mode with trying to, get a rise out of Mike. Okay. And it worked. But just to get back on topic, look at the gentleman's shirt. Okay. This guy has a bunch of serpents on his shirt. Again, Kobe Bryant was the Black Mamba. And I've said all throughout this series that the serpent was going to be a theme, along with the sun, because they represent the same thing. That's why they had to have Rita engage in a conversation with this guy with the serpent shirt on, while she has on the gold dress, because again, the gold dress represents the sun. Okay. And she's engaging in a conversation with a gentleman with a serpent shirt, because they both represent the same thing. Okay. The serpent represents wisdom. Okay. Enlightenment. All right. So now we're going into this part of the scene where The spotlight is on Zuelo. Of course, it's his birthday. And the DJ, which is the Asian gentleman from the Ammo Squad, he announces or sheds light on that fact. And Mike and Marcus goes upstairs to join Zuelo. But what I want to shed light on is actually how the cameraman shot this scene. Look at the structure in the ceiling. Now, one may say it looks like an eye. But me personally, I would actually say that it looks more like a sun with sun rays illuminating from it. Okay. Now, again, this was not by happenstance. This was on purpose. Okay. Again, I said that the sun would be venerated throughout this movie. Why? Because, again, the sun and the serpent represent the same thing. Kobe Bryant was the Black Mamba. And again, this movie also, as I stated in the last video, this movie also touches on the coronavirus. Okay. There's a little aspect of that in here as well. All right. Because remember, it was right after Kobe Bryant died that the COVID-19 started to spread massively, okay, throughout the planet Earth. All right. Here's a better look at that structure that I was talking about. And as we see, to me, it's clearly a sun. Okay, one could argue that it looks like an eye, but to me, it looks more like a sun with the sun rays illuminating from it. Okay. All right, so now we're back at headquarters, and Mike has had an epiphany based on what Armando said. Okay, it's a statement he made when he was on the helicopter. Okay, and Armando was about to shoot him. Okay, but he was able to narrowly escape. And Armando said a phrase that brought something to remembrance. And now he's going to have the big boy here to help him put the pieces together. But what I want to shed light on is the shirt that the big gentleman has on. Look at it. It's another Adidas shirt, and it's the same color scheme as Kobe Bryant's high school jersey. Okay. Now, am I reaching? Again, this, oh boy, let's continue. Okay, so this is the phrase that Armando quoted right before Mike actually fell from the helicopter and into the ocean. Okay, and he said, "Hasta el fuego." Okay, and this is where Mike had his epiphany. Okay, because this is a phrase that him and Isabel would always say to each other, and as he stated, or as he's going to state to his friend Marcus, this is not even real Spanish. It's not real Spanish, okay? It's something that him and Isabel made up, okay? Hasta el fuego. It means until we burn, okay? Until we burn. Now, this is pivotal, okay? Because, again, this is just more predictive programming to what would happen to Kobe Bryant and everybody that was with him on that day until we burn. It's really specifically Kobe and his daughter. Okay. The helicopter crashed and they burned inside of that helicopter. Okay. That's why this phrase is so important. All right. So Mike continues looking on the computer and he stumbles across Armando's birth certificate. Okay. And look at the year Armando was born. He was born in 1996, meaning that the character Armando at the time that this movie came out was also 24 years old. Again, Kobe Bryant wore the number 24. Okay. Kobe Bryant came into the NBA in the year 1996. All right. He was drafted at, I believe, the 13th overall pick. 13th. Again, this is just more predictive programming. That's why it had to be his 13-year-old daughter that was with him when the helicopter went down. Okay, that's why the number 13 has been a theme throughout this movie. All right. Also, look to the far left of the birth certificate. You see LA. Okay, which is what? An allusion to the basketball team that Kobe Bryant played for, the LA Lakers. All right. So based on all the evidence that Mike has stumbled across, okay, it's now been confirmed to him that Armando is indeed his son. Oh, I guess I should have said spoiler alert. Yeah, but anyway, y'all be all right. But anyway, it's been confirmed that he is, in fact, Armando's father. Okay. And now he's about to give the rundown to his friend Marcus. Okay. And he starts off by saying something that's very curious to me. Okay. He says, 24 years ago, before you and me partnered up. That's how he started it. So that got me to thinking, wait a minute, the math is kind of off here. Okay, let's take a look at something. All right. But before we even get into the math, look at the background. Look at how the cameraman shot this. You see, they are in a parking garage, and look at the background. It's a sunlight illuminating in a parking garage. I mean, come on now. This is starting to get a little too blatant, okay? This is clearly sun veneration, okay? All right, so this is a Google search on the release date of the first installment of Bad Boys, okay? Now, let's look at the release date. It says the movie was released April 7th, 1995. So what does that mean? That means that this actually came out 25 years before Bad Boys for Life. Okay. Now, Mike, as we just saw, he said 24 years ago before we partnered up. That's what he said in that scene. You brothers go back and look at the movie yourself. That's what he said. But we see here in 1995, when the movie was released, they were already partners. So that means 25 years ago, they were already partners. So how can he say 24 years ago before we partnered up? You see, maybe I'm wrong, but the math just don't add up. Okay, because again, this has to play into the narrative. Okay, the number 24. Okay, Kobe Bryant wore the number 24. This is why he had to say 24 years ago before we partnered up. Okay, they had to mess up the math on when they became partners on the police force just to play into this narrative. Okay, so the scene continues on, and Mike begins to tell Marcus about Isabel. Okay, how this whole thing is her doing. Okay, and he starts to give him the backstory on his relationship with Isabel. Okay, and he goes on to tell Marcus that she went by the name or the phrase La Bruja, the witch. Okay, and that she worshipped the Santa Muerte. Okay, and we already did the research on the Santa Muerte in one of the previous videos. All right, let's take a look at something. As the scene continues on, the cameraman zooms in on Isabel from a profile view. Okay, and this was on purpose to show her earring. Okay, look at her earring. If you can't tell what it is, it's actually a serpent wrapped around an apple. Again, the serpent represents wisdom. I've been saying this all throughout this movie. The same as the sun, it represents wisdom and enlightenment. And the earring it had to be the serpent wrapped around the apple because she, Isabel, like a lot of women in the entertainment industry, period, they have to play the role of Eve, okay? A rebellious, unrepentant Eve. Okay, that's what she represents, okay? A lot of these mother goddess figures of antiquity, okay, that they venerate in Hollywood are based off of 3 people that actually lived throughout history, okay? It's mainly based off of Nimrod's mother/wife, Semiramis, and it's also based on Eve, and it's based on Yahweh's mother, Mary. Okay, those are the 3 main females that these mother goddess figures are based on. Okay, those 3 women that actually lived in history. All right, the scene continues on, and the cameraman makes sure that he shoots this shot with the sun right near Isabel's face, illuminating. More veneration of the sun, and also showing that she is playing a mother goddess figure in this movie. Okay? And I hate that I have to do still shots like this, but I'm not trying to deal with YouTube and their ridiculous copyright rules. Okay? So what you brothers are going to have to do, you're going to have to go back and actually watch the movie for yourself, and you'll see scene by scene that what I'm touching on is real, okay? I'm not purposely, shooting this or taking this screenshot at this angle to prove a point. The cameraman is literally doing this. So go back and watch the movie for yourself, and you'll see what I'm talking about. All right? So after Mike gives Marcus the backstory of him, about him and Isabel, Marcus's first reaction is, Mike, you effed a married witch? Oh, boy. But again, this is letting you know she's La Bruja. She's the witch, okay? But not only is she a witch, she plays a mother goddess figure in this movie, okay? Mike's reaction was priceless. You mean to tell me after everything I told you, that was your takeaway? Oh, man. But again, this was a very pivotal scene. Okay, they had the sunlight illuminating all throughout the parking garage. Okay, and he revealed how 24 years ago, again, the math was off, but 24 years ago, that before they partnered up, he was on this particular assignment against the Arites cartel. Okay. We also saw Isabel with the earrings with the serpent wrapped around the apple. Okay. Then you had the sun illuminating on her face in this scene as well. Okay. It's just letting you know that the serpent and the sun represent the same exact thing. Okay, that's what they both represent, the same thing in history, in antiquity. Okay. All right, so now we've come to the scene where Marcus has joined Mike on the flight to Mexico to meet up with Isabel and Armando. And as we see here, Marcus is clearly getting on Mike's nerves. But it's something that he said in this particular scene that I want to shed light on. And it was a spin on what they usually say to each other, which is, we ride together, we die together, bad boys for life. But here, Marcus says, we fly together, we die together. But he didn't finish saying bad boys for life. But the point is, this is still predictive programming leading up to the helicopter crash. Okay? Now, one may say, well, he only said that because they were on a plane. And you'd be correct. but on a two-dimensional level. But again, three-dimensionally, when you're looking at this from a spiritual vantage point, you know what he really meant by that, or what was being implied. Okay? Here we have the airplane flying above the Miami sign. And as we see, the cameraman again shot this at a specific angle. Okay? Look at the middle of the letter A. Okay? It's the shape of a triangle. And the cameraman shot it to where the sun is illuminating on top of the particular triangle right there in the middle. It's just more Masonic imagery that they're trying to capture in this particular clip or scene. Okay. So moving forward a bit, we have this scene where Isabel is standing in front of the Santa Muerte. And I told you, brothers, this scene was coming up. I knew it was a scene where you will have this statue of the Santa Muerte. And if you look towards the bottom of the statue, you actually see the owl. Okay. As we already read up on in one of the previous videos, we know that the owl is the animal that is associated with the Santa Muerte. The same way the owl is associated with the Roman goddess Minerva. Okay. Or the Greek goddess Athena, okay? She then proceeds to pick up a picture of her and Mike, or a Photoshop picture of her and Mike when they were younger, all right? And as we see here, it's more of the Hegelian dialectic, the coming together of opposites. You have the white and the black, the male and the female for the masculine and the feminine principle, okay? And as we see, looking at her hair, she has one eye exposed, and it's actually the right eye, surprisingly, for the masculine principle. But again, this is the Hegelian dialectic, the coming together of opposites. All right. So before we get into this scene, let me start off by saying this. Congratulations for making it this far into the series. And also allow me to say thank you. I want to say thank you to each and every last one of you who has taken time out to tune in to each and every video that I put out concerning this movie. Okay. Now getting into this scene. Okay. This is one of the last scenes of the movie. And let me tell you, this is probably the most telling scene throughout the whole movie. Okay, if you watch this scene and you still have doubts, then I really don't know what to tell you. Okay, you're not looking at this through a spiritual lens. All right, and maybe it's not meant for you to get it. Okay, I don't expect everybody to get these type of videos. All right, I know it takes a special group of individuals to actually understand what's being displayed. Okay. So let's get into it. All right. So beginning here, Mike has now just entered into the hotel in Mexico City to meet up with Isabel and Armando. Okay. And the cameraman places emphasis on certain things in the beginning of this scene. One of those things being this tree. Okay. Now, this tree could be an allusion to the Kabbalistic tree of life. All right. Then if you look to the left, you see the pillar, which could be an allusion to the twin pillars of Joaquin and Boaz. All right. The cameraman then proceeds to zoom in upward toward the ceiling. And as we see here, it is an image that is supposed to be an allusion to the sun, which is a point of enlightenment. All right, let's continue. Now we have Mike in front of an altar of the Santa Muerte. And as we see at the top, the image of the Santa Muerte, you see the image of the owl at the bottom of the statue. Again, the owl is a symbol also of the Roman goddess Minerva and the Greek goddess Athena, known as the Owl of Athena, or in Rome, the Owl of Minerva. Okay, and look to the far right, you have the sun illuminating in on the the altar of the Santa Muerte. All right. The scene continues on, and the cameraman places emphasis on the staircase, which is an allusion to the stairway to heaven, the Masonic stairway to heaven. And look at the top of the stairway to heaven, you have Isabel, who is playing the role of a mother goddess. Okay. I told you, this is probably the most telling scene in this whole movie. It's a very Masonic scene, and it gets worse. Okay, let's continue on. Here we have Isabel standing over Mike in a position of power. Now, how do we know it's a position of power? Look at the light that's illuminating on her. She's a mother goddess figure in this particular scene, or throughout the whole movie. But also look at her dress code. She has on the leopard print, which lets me know that 9 times out of 10, she's probably a beta program sex kitten, which most of these females in Hollywood are. Okay. The scene continues on, and as we see, Marcus has been captured by Armando. All right. And Mike, as we all know, he wants to smoke. Mike always wants to smoke, boy. But if you look at the floor, it's a checkered board floor. I told y'all, this is probably the most telling and the most Masonic scene throughout the whole movie. All right. Now look at the table. You have a red table giving us the black mass, the black, white, and red for sacrifice. All right. And isn't it something that they would have a red table in this movie? Could this be an allusion to Will Smith's real life wife, Jada Pinkett Smith? Because as we know, she has a web series on Facebook, I believe, called Red Table Talk. All right. You know what? Let's have a bit of fun. Okay. Let's see if this kind of plays into the narrative a little bit. Okay. Let's take a look at something. All right, this is a Google search on Jada Pinkett Smith's web series called Red Table Talk. And it reads, Red Table Talk is an American web television talk show starring Willow Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith, and her mother, Adrienne Banfield Norris, that premiered on May 7th, 2018, on Facebook Watch. On June 13th, 2018, it was announced that Facebook had ordered an additional 13 episodes of the series. Wow. I mean, I'm telling you, they slick with it. They had to have an allusion to Will Smith's real life wife, Jada Pinkett Smith. They had to have that red table there. For multiple reasons, okay? That red table was on the checkerboard floor, giving us the black mass, okay? And that red table, in a sense, it alludes to the number 13, okay? And not to mention that when you're dealing within the craft, the number 13 is also a number that represents a witch's coven, okay? That number has always, throughout history, been a number that represents a witch's coven. Again, Isabel is La Bruja, the witch. This also gives us some insight into Jada Pinkett Smith, her daughter, Willow Smith, and her mother, Adrienne Banfield Norris. Okay, they could be practicing witches. It would not surprise me, not one bit. So the scene continues on, and the ammo squad enters the hotel to give backup to Mike and Marcus. All right. So Armando and his mother proceeds to ascend the stairway to heaven. All right. And let's see what happens once Armando actually reaches the top of the quote unquote Masonic stairway to heaven. All right. Moving forward, we have this part of the scene with the big boy, the member of the ammo squad. I believe his name was Dorn in the movie. And we have the part of the scene where he says, Transition. Oh boy, that part was funny. It was very funny, but he actually said that for a purpose. Again, this movie symbolizes the transition into the new normal. Okay, we already touched on that earlier, dealing with the spiral, which is an allusion to the number 9. The number 9 representing the divine feminine. All right. And notice after he said transition, what did he have to do? He proceeded to kill people. Okay, so what does that let us know? That this transition into the new normal is going to come through death. That death is by way of COVID-19 or Kobe-19, shall I say. So as the gunfight progresses, you see Marcus pull out the shotgun and he shoots this gentleman here. This gentleman with a white and black checkered shirt. Okay. And he gets shot in his chest, which again releases blood for the black, white, and red, the black mass, sacrifice. Okay. Then immediately after that, they proceed to go up the stairway to heaven. Talking about Mike and Marcus. Right after he kills the gentleman with the checkered shirt, the black and white checkered shirt with the red blood on it, they proceed to go up the stairway to heaven, letting you know what? This scene is Masonic, okay? When you get into the craft, you have to first walk the checkered board floor, okay, which represents duality. You have to embrace both the dark side of you and the light side, the good and the bad. Bring them together because in their view, there's no difference between the two. It's just a different side of the same coin. So you have to embrace both in order to make your way up what they call the stairway to heaven. Okay? And of course, sacrifice is also required in order to go up that stairway as well. The scene progresses forward. Then Marcus says, where the hell are they getting all these helicopters from? Which is letting us know what? The focus is now the helicopter. Okay? The director wanted to put emphasis on the helicopter. Okay? This is still more predictive programming. Like I said, this is probably the most telling scene in the whole movie. All right? Let's continue. Moving forward, we see here that Armando opens fire on Mike and Marcus. And now I want to take a look at his belt buckle. Now, don't quote me on it. I can't really make it out, but it appears to be 2 serpents, the same as he had on his leather jacket earlier. Okay, so again, this is just more veneration of the serpent. Kobe Bryant was the Black Mamba. And they had to shoot this scene with the helicopter in the background. All right, let's move forward. The scene continues and Marcus begins to open fire on the pilot that is flying the helicopter. And Mike asks him, what are you shooting at? And then Marcus goes on to say, at the pilot. And Mike responds by saying, aim at the rotor. If you shoot the pilot, then it's too late. Marcus has now shot the pilot. And he now realizes that he made a mistake. Now let's see what happens next. Because this is probably the very most telling part of the movie. Okay? After Marcus shoots the pilot, the helicopter comes crashing down upon the checkered board floor, causing a Beltane type fire. Listen, you can take this to the bank. Okay, I can really end the video right here. This is the most blatant evidence that I have. Okay, but you know what? I'm going to put the icing on the cake and we're going to continue. Let's see what happens next. Now we've reached the point in the scene where Mike reveals to Armando that he is indeed his father. Okay, and notice how Armando had to go up the stairway to heaven to reach a point of enlightenment. It wasn't until he reached the top of the stairs that he found out that Mike was his father. Okay, this scene is very Masonic. After Mike reveals to Armando that he is his father, Isabel actually wakes up after her encounter with Marcus. After he knocks her out for a short period of time, she comes to. And notice how the cameraman filmed this particular scene. He zoomed in on her left eye. It's only her left eye that's exposed. Okay, that's for the Mother Goddess. She plays a Mother Goddess figure in this movie. The scene continues on, and Armando actually asks his mother Isabel about what Mike just told him. Is it true? And as she answers him, notice the painting on the wall. It's a painting of oranges. Okay, as we know, orange is the only color that has a numerical value of 33. 33 represents sacrifice. That's what this scene is about. So after Isabel confesses that Mike is indeed Armando's father, she becomes enraged and tries to shoot Mike. Then Armando proceeds to intervene. He gets caught in the crossfire and he gets shot instead. This further enrages Isabel to the point where she proceeds to try and shoot Mike again. But then we have Rita, who intervenes and actually saves Mike. Rita opens fire on Isabel, causing her to fall off the edge. But notice, right before Isabel falls off the edge, the cameraman had to shoot this shot at an angle where we get one more look at the painting of the oranges. Again, orange represents 33. 33 represents sacrifice, which this scene is about sacrifice. Okay, now what else lets us know that this scene is about sacrifice? I said that Rita opened fire on Isabel, but she shot her a sum total of 9 times. Okay, 9 people actually died in that helicopter on that day. Okay, this is more predictive programming. All right. You brothers go back and watch this scene for yourself. Don't take my word for it. And you'll see that what I'm saying is true. Rita shot her 9 times. And as she was falling off the edge, the cameraman made sure that that painting was seen. Okay. Isabel falls off the edge and lands right on top of the helicopter that caused the fire. Hasta el fuego. Okay, until we burn. I told you, you can take this to the bank. This is really the icing on the cake. Okay, she landed on top of the helicopter that crashed down onto the checkered board floor that caused this fire. Okay, this is a very Masonic scene, but it's also predictive programming. Okay, this was about the death of Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gigi, and everybody that was aboard the helicopter on that day. Moving right along, we've come to this scene where they're having a celebration for Rita because she is now the new captain. As I said in one of the previous videos, okay, when Captain Howard was murdered, okay, that represented the death of the masculine principle and the veneration of the feminine principle. Okay, now Rita is the captain in the place of Captain Howard. Okay, this movie, or Kobe Bryant's sacrifice, in part was for the veneration of the divine feminine. Okay, moving along in the scene, we see here we have Mike and Rita having a conversation. And in the middle of them, we see the children's basketball hoop. Again, just more of an allusion to Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi. But notice the dress code of Mike and Marcus. They have on the blue and the red. Marcus has on the blue, Mike has on the red. Again, this is more coming together of opposites, okay? You have both fire and ice is what's being displayed here. The scene ends with Mike, Marcus, and Marcus's grandson, little Marcus, okay? And notice, again, Mike has on the red for fire. Marcus has on the blue for ice. And notice little Marcus, he has on what looks to be an orangish gold type of shirt, which represents the sun, okay? And also at the very end of this scene, I don't think I got a screenshot of it, but if you look at it, as Marcus completely destroys the Bad Boy song again, the cameraman actually pans up and kind of zooms in on the sun, okay? So, you know, you brothers can go back and actually look at that scene, but that's actually how it ended, with the cameraman actually putting emphasis on the sun, all right? So now we've entered into the final scene, where Mike actually goes and visits his son Armando in prison. Now look behind Armando. Look at what the cameraman did. Okay, it's an allusion to a sun that's illuminating on him. Okay, remember Armando has reached a point of enlightenment. Okay, he has on the orange jumpsuit, which represents the number 33. This movie is about sacrifice as well. Okay, all of this is predictive programming in regards to Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi and everybody that was in the helicopter on that day. All right. Will Smith was also the perfect person to play this role. It's still more predictive programming. In case you didn't know, Will Smith is from Philadelphia. Okay, so is Kobe Bryant. All right. Will Smith's most famous role was probably in his TV sitcom, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, where he left Philadelphia to go to California. Okay, which is very interesting because Kobe Bryant himself is from Philadelphia and wound up playing for the LA Lakers in California. Again, it's still more of an allusion to Kobe Bryant. All right. But anyway, brothers, I think this is a good place to end it. I think I covered everything that needs to be covered. I'm sure there's plenty more that can be touched on, but I think this is a good place to stop. Okay. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. What you brothers should go and do, go back and watch the movie for yourself. Okay. And you'll see everything that I'm saying, every screenshot is pretty much on point. You know, it's not me actually taking the screenshot specifically at a specific time to make a point. You know, the cameraman is actually shooting these scenes in a specific way to display a specific message. All right. But, thank all of you for, joining me in this journey throughout this video series titled Bad Boys for Life, Mamba for Life. Okay. So until next time, shalom, family.